Good morning, man. And welcome everybody to Organic Minds Podcast, episode 18. We still at it this morning. Yesterday I ended the live and it kind of set on my spirit. And I want to say good morning to everybody. For all my people on Facebook that be tapping in, I appreciate y'all for leaving comments and just continue to help me share the videos and to get this out there. For all my people that came from the morning convos, I want to say shout out to y'all this morning. People from YouTube that's been tapping in with me for the last month or so on the Organic Mind Podcast. I want to thank y'all. People on Instagram, which it just reminded me because I got to hit the button on Instagram. Hold up. That's how we're going to do it. All right, my people on Instagram, I want to say good morning to y'all too. For everybody in the building right now, I want to say good morning. You know, Saturday we get into it. Today's convo going to be very, very detailed and intricate, right? And I want to say, let me go ahead and get everybody in the building. Good morning, good morning. Give me 1 second, y'all. We dropping it in here. So this morning, we're going to be talking about it was a video I was saying yesterday with a guy. It was a Hispanic guy when he was breaking down. A video was called Not From Africa. And he was his goal was he was debunking Ivan Van Sertima and a lot of our black scholars trying to say that it was people in America that was black or that were what we would call black, but they weren't from Africa and they weren't Africans, right? So I'm just trying to understand and figure out. So like I was saying yesterday, well, what is it? It stayed on my mind so much. I said, I'm going to go back to what he's saying and go through it because we didn't get through it all yesterday. And then I'm going to also play you other things by other people, not just from me, from even white people talking about who these people that came over to Africa, what they found to prove that these people who came from Africa came to America, right? And just to show you that when we going back so far back, because he's thinking about, you know, the Olmecs was there in the Stone Age when they went over there, right? This isn't recent time. So I wanted to touch on these situations. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about robbing, and that was his point, was that we were robbing as African Americans, saying that we founded all these civilizations, that we're robbing the world of their true ethnicity. Like we're taking credit from the Hispanics when we saying that our people, our ancestors founded America. We taking credit from the Chinese, Europeans. But a lot of this stuff is documented, and history is something that we all can kind of stand on. But there's an issue right now. And one of the biggest issues right now is that we all have to understand and start to accept the biggest point that everybody's struggling with. And what people are struggling with is that in order for us to grow as a people mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then we got to understand that first, the other cultures of the world has to deal with the self and inner racism and how they really truly reflect on us as people. And even though everybody say, well, I don't have no problem with so-called black people or dark, right? There's an uncomfortable nature when you start educating them about these same people that y'all think less of, or the people who are the descendants of the exact descendants of the founders of civilizations. He made a lot of points where he was saying things like, okay, well, the people that came, that the dark-skinned people that lived in America, they weren't Africans. And they're not Africans, and they have no connections to Africa, and they were here already, right? And I was trying to, and as I'm listening to him, it was bugging me out, like, because I'm listening to his information and just open mind. Because I even said some parts yesterday, if you've seen it, I was saying, okay, I can agree with that. But then if we're going to argue and we're going to make those arguments and we're going to start to say stuff like these people, these dark-skinned people, or these so-called people, they want black people, then you got to be able to tell me who they are, right? You got to be able to tell me who are they, where they come from, what's their descendants, everything. Because if you're going to debunk, you got to give me proof. And he was kind of like, check this video. Like, nah, show the proof that you got of what you're doing right now, right? Show us. And if y'all see me looking down, it's because I'm trying to tag to get everybody in the room. But this video, and we're going to get to it, it's a lot of information this morning. And then at the end, one of the things I'm going to show you is after he debunks Ivan Van Sertima, I figured that I'll let you hear Ivan's work itself, because early yesterday, and I want to say this as a disclaimer for people that didn't catch yesterday. Hold on, y'all. for the people that didn't catch the live yesterday, at the beginning, he was trying to show you that Ivan Sertima, like his dad was white or something like that, because he don't understand that he's still, whatever you are, if you got black blood, you still considered, right? Or what they call African blood, right? So he was identifying, because even though he might have been mixed or whatever, he still was treated a certain way, or he felt the racism. So that's what Ivan Sertima identified with. And he attacked that, and he was showing like his family tree. And I was saying that if you're going to attack a person in their family tree, right, then you got to then show the other scholars who work you bring to discredit him, show us who they are. Show us what their nationality is, where they come from, who their family is, what they're a part of. Because to just point them out, but not to really, there was nothing at that point in the lecture that was good. So I said, let me be fair and go back and do it. So before we get there, let me get my intro in this morning. And we're going to build from that. So let me go ahead and get my intro in. But I thought it was very important for me to start this morning on where I left off yesterday, because it's super important to see this, because I told y'all that in the last year or so, I was in a lot of forums with Blacks and Hispanics, and the arguments have been that a lot of, and I mean it in respect, that a lot of Hispanics were saying that the Blacks had no part, like we were taking credit for them in their founding of America, and that we're blackwashing history and taking credit for places that we didn't start. And so I knew when I got back that the first thing we needed to do is not arguing, is re-educate, to not just talk about it, but to show proof. Because I talked to a lot of my Hispanic brothers and sisters and educated them and showed them where the misconception and the lies was. And they was like, wow, right? So we're going to play this intro and we're going to get to it.
Mr. Lowe. Tell us about your father.
Why don't you tell us something about your father?
We're trying to get to know each other, Mr. Lowe.
I was trying to get to know you, Mr. Tolson.
Well, I'm not the one on the debate team.
Are we not engaged in a debate right now?
All right. I'll take the affirmative. Take the meanest, most restless nigger. Strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, female niggers, and nigger infants. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a horse facing in opposite direction, set him on fire, and beat both horses until they tear him apart in front of the male, female, and nigger infants. Bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males within an inch of their life. Do not kill them, but put the fear of God in them, for they can be useful for future breeding. Anybody know who Willie Lynch was? Anybody? Raise your hand. No one? He was a vicious slave owner in the West Indies. The slave masters in the colony of Virginia were having trouble controlling their slaves, so they sent for Mr. Lynch to teach them his methods. The word lynching came from his last name. His methods were very simple, but they were diabolical. Keep the slave physically strong, but psychologically weak and dependent on the slave master. Keep the body, take the mind. I and every other professor on this campus are here to help you to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. Because obviously you have lost it.
Real talk.
That's all you need to know about me, Mr. Lowe.
And I just want to say good morning to everybody. And that's my goal and my intent of this podcast, to help you keep and save and restore your righteous mind, so you can have a better idea, not of what I think only, but to bring you the information so that you can see the information and formulate it for yourself, and take this information and be able to talk to your family and people that's close or like mine, so that we can move forward. Because no matter how intelligent you are, there has to be a group understanding and for us to go forward, right? So the point of this podcast is to help you. And I realize that 2025, I'm starting to notice that this year is going to be straight business and straight, like, we're going to get straight to the point when it comes down to knowledge, and we're going to expand. So y'all know my intro. I love this. Like I say, it's the character he portrayed. I love it, right? Now, I want to point out a couple things before we go forward in this lecture about the OMAX and this guy discrediting our scholars. Listen to this.
Over where you thinking he's achieving a perfection, and he wants a position in music that's not something you may even understand. You know what I mean? It's like he know he can do it, but he know with these collective minds in the room,
It's like
I can
Infinity
get something.
Stones. It's like Thanos.
You know what I mean? You should be scared of an artist that knows how to write his own records, but also chooses to use other people.
And why do you say that?
Because that means his mind, his ceiling is high. It's way over where you thinking. He's achieving a perfection, and he wants a position in music that's not something you may even understand. You know what I mean? It's like he know he can do it, but he know with these collective minds in the room,
it's like
I can
Infinity
get something.
Stones. It's like Thanos.
You know what I mean?
Now, on the aspect of, okay, one, the reason why I put up there, this is why the game fucked up today. Let me explain why. At the end of the day, when we growing up as young black men, black women, or whatever, when we see in these fields and we come in, like when I found out that like in order to win a Grammy, it has to be like 27 writers. And I'm like, what? So that mean that to be nominated, there's mad writers. Now it's cool if I got 6 singers on the album, drummers and all this, and they wrote their parts and their music. That's cool. That's 100% cool. But when we dealing with, when as an artist, I thought the goal was to perfect yourself. Now, am I ignorant to the point of understanding that he's saying that if I got, let's say it's me and let's say 4 other people that's amazing artists, and we sit there and we come up with concepts together, of course our concepts are going to be out of this world. Now, if elevation is your goal and key, I understand Twister from that perspective, right? Because now we talking business, right? But on a self-worth, and when we be screaming we the best and want to argue and stand in rooms and want to be respected, we're selling ourselves short a little bit because I thought the goal was to be great minds, right? So I'm not against it, but I think that's what's wrong with hip-hop, because now when they talk to the youth, this is what the OGs is telling them. So now they telling them like, look, bro, because you know why? Because they kind of like, look, because they know all the shit about to come out about them not writing these songs. So you do have to be on a different level in order to let other people come in and change your art. But remember, when it's all said and done, 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, if they even can still play the CDs and music or any of this shit, when they play it back, they're going to see that. And when they find out that you didn't manifest this by yourself compared to the ancient statues and all of this shit that were or certain things, you're not going to be respected in the same way. Always remember that, right? And I ain't going to spend too long on that, but I thought that was a very clear thing, right? Now we're going to get... Where we at? We're going to get straight to business. Now, this is the part of the conversation that I came back from yesterday, right? So this is not from Africa. I've been Sertima, Afrocentric opinion debunked. Now, what he's doing, and I want to make it clear, because if you love the convo, you're going to love this, because a real teacher always is supposed to give you the other side as well. So this is a scholar, a Hispanic man, who is debunking that there were blacks in America, but they weren't from Africa. Right? But he's saying that they had no connection. I disagree on that. But we started yesterday, we were like 48 minutes in, and he made a lot of comparisons. I want to give a disclaimer. At the beginning, he said, well, I read a book, but I haven't really seen much of Ivan Sertima's work, and that just threw me off. It was like, how can you make these opinions and have this if you never really, if you read an article or something about a man, because clearly I felt like he read this article about how the article was saying that when our scholars of the 60s and 70s, 80s, and even now, somebody like me, when I'm teaching who funded America, China, and all these areas, that I'm Africanizing a blackwashing history, and we're giving credit, and we're taking credit for places and starting things that we didn't really truly do. I want everybody to understand that that's what the argument is right now. And in America, the Hispanics are saying like, wait, like the blacks didn't find America. Like when Africans came here, that they found people here, right? And on a deeper argument, and before I go forward, I wanted to say this. Sometimes I realized, as I thought about it all day yesterday, that what I don't think he understands is that the Olmec civilization is Old Amexem. America, where we live at in North America, is New Amexem. That was the original. But just like Africa, the people, it started at the bottom and migrated up. Now, his argument is that people was in America before. Like there's already people here, dark-skinned people that wasn't Africans, had no connection. Now, I told him, I don't know anywhere on the planet when you've seen dark people where they didn't. He made a reference to Genghis Khan early in it, and I'm just giving you a recap and saying, but Genghis Khan, if you know, the picture of Genghis Khan, he's clearly dark-skinned. Now, it is true that in our culture that the ancient, like the people from Africa or the ancient cultures didn't consider any mixed breed form a sense of, they didn't consider them as their stuff. I always tell y'all that. But at the same time, those cultures still that came in time from Greek, but those cultures met people. So I want to make it clear to you, this is what I've learned, and even in my quietness. When we're dealing with the Sumerians have Suniform, but it's a derivative of cuneiform. They say the Sumerians came before the Egyptians, but it's true. But what did Dr. Ben tell us? Nubia is the mother of Egypt. Before the new year, I did one of these podcasts where the guy was telling you what? He was telling you that a white guy, he said he doesn't understand why they keep lying, trying to make it sound like extraterrestrials that founded the area. He's a scientist, and he said, and he showed you that the Sumerians, they wrote in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and he told you that they came from Nubian stock. And the reason why they were giants on the wall is because the people indigenous to that area were the Negritos. They come from pygmy stock. So when you see on the wall these giants, so it's like the Nubian stock at the time, like the true Nubian stock, when we talk about the gods and the kings, it's like Katie and LeBron and them. Right? So when they came, they were that tall, 6'7", 6'6" to 7 feet, 7, you know what I'm saying? So why you think this gene exists in China, or these giants in these areas of where these giants are, right? And even taller, right? But I'm not saying there were no giants, but he was showing you that they left proof that they were Nubians, right? And the ancient China people, they came from a Nubian stock as well, or what we would call Nubian, right? And the Qing dynasty told you that as well. So I wanted to give you this debriefing now. He brought up Mansa Musa, and he brought up he brought up a lot of scholars, and I like that because we need to be able to see the arguments and to see both sides, but also to be able to know what's fact from fiction, right? So let's get to it.
Other journeys to the Americas at various times after the.
Listen to this.
Hey, I should have known they hit you with that commercial first, but let's tap in because y'all gonna enjoy this.
Influences. Come on now. That's a good question. This is what I was saying earlier. Why would
go back?
Sertima occasionally says that the Olmecs were not pure Africans? Like even in his book, he says they weren't pure Africans, or that the African voyagers only influenced and were not the main catalyst for the rise of civilization in the Americas. Look, he contradicts himself in his own book. But these disclaimers are merely pro forma. And he had to say that because he knew he couldn't prove that, right? And also because there's other phenotypes with the Olmecs. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Ben Sertima knew that. He couldn't say, well, this guy that looks like an Asian, this Asian mask. Just go ahead and Google it right now, guys. I've shown it in my videos. Google Olmec pottery, Olmec mask. You'll see different phenotypes. He couldn't take credit for everything. So he's like, oh, they're not fully Africans. Continues, says the cumulative total of his claims amounts to a decisive influence on most aspects of the Olmec culture: religion, language, pyramids, customs, weaving, metalworking, dyeing, etc. If the Nubians were not godlike or superior, why would the Olmecs on short acquaintance put forth the Herculean efforts required to transport and carve their likeness in basalt, right? If they weren't godlike, then why would they do that? If the Nubians were not superior, why would most of Van Sertima's followers attribute the sudden rise of the Olmecs to Egypto-Nubian influences? Come on now. That's a good question. This is what I was saying earlier. Why would they do that? Why would they just, oh, you guys get to rule us now? Van Sertima also claimed that Black Africans made other journeys to the Americas at various times after the 7th century BC. The most important of these alleged voyages was that of the Abu Bakr II, the Mandingo emperor of Mali in AD 1311. And guys, again, he's going to talk about it right now. We might have more videos on this. I'm going to show you the actual sources. He's going to mention the actual sources. There's only one source for this. And they never said he went to the Americas. Never in the source did he say they went. This is conjecture. So this is what he used in conjecture to say, oh, they came to the Americas, these people, in 1311 from Mali. According to Van Sertima, Abu Bakr embarked from some unspecified location, he doesn't know where, on the western coast of his dominions, Senegambia, most likely, right? That's what they say in the theory, with a large fleet of ships, and sailed across the Atlantic to the Gulf Coast of Mexico, where his expedition came into contact with the peoples of the Vera Cruz region, the Valley of Mexico, and the Valley of Oaxaca. These peoples were profoundly influenced by Abu Bakari and his Mandingo agents in the areas of technology, religion, and the arts in the period after contact was established. In the years since the publication,
some of the stuff he's saying does have very good standing, right? But when he's mixing and he doesn't understand history. And let me explain. Abu Bakari is Mansa Musa. He's saying that when you can't prove where Mansa Musa went, and they saying that they know he took boats and traveled from Africa and went west. Well, where the fuck else did he go? Somebody please explain this to me. Write in the chat. Well, if the wealthiest man in the world take 200 boats, and we learned that the boats was like can take elephants and 70 tonners, and they go from Africa, from this part of Africa, and sail west. Where else the fuck they go? Well, they gonna end up in China, so they gonna skip past the whole landmass and continent, and where else they go? They in China, they in Asia. Think about it. We can educatedly guess that where he ended up, some of them ships, majority of them ships. Not only that, but there's been historical evidence that Mansa Musa, they really think is Montezuma of the Aztec Empire. But you want to hear the craziest part of how what he doesn't see when I talk to people who are historians that love history, that start digging from other forms, this is what I do know, and I'm gonna keep going. He forgot that Mansa Musa's grandfather left him the throne when he was like 12. Mansa Musa left, he was like 30-something, 40-something, or something like that. You feel me? They left. They took 200, 400 boats. His older brother and his grandfather's uncle, whichever one it was, and they took boats. And then when he became King Young, and then that's when he got like grown, and then a ship came back and he let them know, like, yo, like we lost a fourth of our ships, and then some went into what we call South America, and the current took the rest of them into Mexico. So the reason why before Mansa Musa left, because Africa was being colonized by the Europeans and foreign invaders. So he made his pilgrimage, and I told you they forced him to stop in Egypt. And that's how you know it was people that wasn't like true Africans. We're talking about it wasn't people who knew the rules of kingship, who thought they was better because they made Mansa Musa kiss their feet. And if we are kings and richest man, why would you? So he did it, kept it pushing, went to the Middle East, what we call the Middle East, which is his homeland. Because the empire of Africa stretched from Africa all the way to China. There was no such thing as the Middle East of China. That was Africa. Right? Including to the left will end up becoming Americas in some sense. So the issue is that he doesn't mention anything about his grandfather and them voyages that left 30, 40 years before him. So when he gets to the coast, he's looking for his family.
They came before Columbus. Van Sertima has revised his hypothesis, listen, only slightly and with great reluctance. For example, in the early 1980s, he pushed back the date for the earliest possible contact between the Olmecs and the Egypto-Nubians to the early 10th century BC. Again, that all cancels out. If he's calling them Egyptians when ancient Egypt was here, that automatically is pseudo. Automatically, he's saying Nubians, not even West Africans. He's saying.
So this guy, he's saying, remember, I don't disagree with him that the true Egypt and stuff was here. But he's saying that they're not African. See, it's a lot of wild things with his thought too, because I would remind him that, in Nefertiti's tomb in Egypt and Africa, she's pouring a cup of water that flows like the Mississippi River. So she's telling you that she's from America. So clearly she was married into the Egypt and Africa. Think about it. They were marrying royalty into royalty. That's how the empires was expanding. So if there was never no contact between the American blacks that you call not blacks or Africans or whatever, Moors, and they had nothing to do with the so-called fake Egyptians that was in Africa, because I'm saying that there's a connection between them two. Now, why was Nefertiti pouring a cup of water that flowed in the Mississippi River? They were migrating, just like in the mummies' tombs they found in the last couple years, last 2-3 years, they found tobacco from South America and America. They found cocaine from America, from Colombia and South America. in the mummies. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they buried it with them because they wanted you to know they went to the Americas. So that's why I like this debate, to be able to show y'all this. And I also wanted to tell y'all too that the most important thing is that please stay with this conversation, because I got another thing from another guy telling you how they found maps in Egypt that in burial tombs that was showing you that they was in America. And I'm gonna let and I'm gonna also introduce you to Ivan Ben Sertima and let you know what I'm saying, just so to be fair on both sides.
Saying Nubians came over here from East Africa, right? When Egypt was right here. Shout out again to UBTB. He has so many videos proving that America is Egypt. Go check out those videos, guys. I really enjoy them. I think they're very informative. They make a lot of sense. We've already proven corn is from here. We know ancient Egypt, Little Egypt, North America. We know all that was right here. Come on now. So that cancels out what he's saying about Egypto-Nubians coming in earlier, whenever he's saying and influencing. And he says that in an attempt to account for the
he said Little Egypt was here. Listen to you. If that was Little Egypt, just like the Nile River, the Nile in Africa is older because the Nile in Africa is made by nature. The Nile, the Mississippi River, the Nile of the Americas, it was man-made. They mimicked what was in Africa. That's what he doesn't get.
United States established for the origins of Olmec civilization at that time. So because they had realized that the so-called Olmec civilization, as people were starting to study them, was going even further back in time. His book that he had written in the 70s wasn't adding with the real timelines of what they're finding in Mexico. So he had to kind of push that back a little bit. I meant they came a little. I meant that these Egyptians came before that. That's what I meant. So he revised his books, newer editions. Literally, you can go check them out. He changed the time. The revised chronology was also used by Van Sertima to claim that the Nubians had had a strong influence over the Egyptians from the early 11th to the middle of the 7th century BC. More recently, he has grudgingly accepted the Olmec chronology by emphasizing the alleged importance of the Black Egyptian and Pharaonic society, and by claiming that the Black African played a dominant role in the old world at either end of the dating equation, be it 1200 BC or 700 BC. So, he's trying to say, you got to dodge the hijack because he's trying to Africanize all the other old world cultures, which is true. They didn't all come out of Africa or from Africa at all, but they were melanated people, these original people in the old so-called old world, the other side of the world. This is the old world over here. We should call the new world that side over there. Van Sertima has nurtured a coterie of enthusiastic supporters among the Afrocentrists and the cultural naturalists in general. So this is music to their ears. All these Pan-Africans, all these Afrocentric people, this is music to their ears. Of course they
What I've been trying to all night, because I thought about this. Like when I listen to him, I don't disagree with like America being ancient. Y'all heard me go in about who land this was and stuff, and we know that the land belonged to the Hispanics and the Moors, or who we call the blacks. It's in the law books. But even the Moors of these people identify with counterparts. He said that earlier he said that the Nubians, that he was saying that they want all pure Nubian stock. Listen, that's how I know he doesn't know. None of the races today are pure anything. That's why they're called, like the Moors are called aboriginals, right? They're like they're descendants of these people. That's what it means, right? So there's nobody, like when he say Nubian stock, like to be a Moor means to be of mixed blood, right? To be, meaning ancient Chinese who really come from ancient Africa, the Qing dynasty told you that. So those people in the Egyptians, or who we call the people from China, the people of the Nile, before we had Egyptians, their kids became who are in America today. That's the connection between Mansa Musa and the people and the wealth and the riches and the boats and the building, the schools, all of that. So when he says that they're not of true stock, he has to understand that we produce multiple colors in our own nation. And at the same time, he also need to understand that by time we had, remember, we founded the Americas, but why did we know there was a landmass there already? Just like why did we know there was a landmass in Antarctica that Hitler and them supposed to have used? How did we know that Greenland was really ice? And how did they know that they could hide under the ice because there's hot springs? Because we had already circumnavigated and mapped the planet from boats and out and in the sky, whether you want to believe it or not, because the only way you can draw maps is by being in the sky. So we had already mapped the planet. We already had maps. That's how we knew it was over there. And then we knew it was over there. People clearly went over there and probably was living over there already and didn't make it back. Ship crashes, right? But on the backside of America, when you go into the Pacific side, you got the islands that come up when you get closer, like the back of Japan, all of that. And then we got to remember that the Portuguese colonized the Pacific Ocean first. So when we see the Hispanics, it's a book out called From Thanos to Thanos to and they kept going all the names until they became what we call the Hispanic today, because their descendancy and their lineage and their genetics come from a race of brown-skinned people that come from the Philippines mixed with these people that they brought over. Because when the Portuguese brought these people, and it was a girl I worked with, right? And she was like, yo, she was like, dang, Jared, she was like, yo, you right. Because she from one of them islands. She said her mother used to say that the Hispanic culture shit, she thought her mother was just tripping, but she said, dang, she said, my mom is from one of the islands, and when she got to America, she got depressed because her connection with the animals and like how we were so much, she couldn't believe how disconnected to nature we was. So she went into depression. And she said her mother just say, you know, the Hispanics are so arrogant and they don't even know that their lineage comes from the Pacific Islands and the people that come from there that mix with the people that was here in America. Right? And it's a whole book written by European lady about how they came over. And when they first came over, their job was to oversee the dark-skinned people they found in America. And they were allowed to oversee and have land. And then they weren't just like these mean racist people. They just said that the people they got from the Pacific Ocean, they weren't a violent people. They were brown-skinned, but they weren't a violent people. They were peaceful. But they weren't the same people that they found in America. The American people they found were more hostile and more protective in the mindset and building the sciences like the Africans. So when the Portuguese came and overseen them, the Portuguese put them over top, and then they weren't just the evilest people in the world. So they made it with them. And this is where some of their kids had lighter skin and started mixing. And this is where you get to turn the dark skinned ones we call blackamoors. This book is from, I'm going to find it and try to find it. By the time we end it, I'm going to show you. And if I can find it, I'll show the book or post that YouTube or link to the lady who wrote the book so y'all can at least tap into that, right? But I just explaining this to you because it's very important because there's so much history he does not know.
Love his book. Of course, he's such a great researcher. He's a master teacher. Ivan Van Sertima. You saw what he looked like, right? Van Sertima is not an African last name, right? I bet you he has no African in him. This is the people trying to Africanize you. And this is the people Pan-Africans run with. All right, so he has literally brainwashed them, and there's music to their ears because that's what they believe. That's what they want it to be true, right? These Afrocentric and the cultural nationalists in general. These individuals are inclined to promote his concepts as historical truth. Like I was just saying, Pan-Africans will run with that with no proof just because a Olmec looks Negroid, the statue. They're saying it's African. Oh, he's right. He's right. You're wrong, Cootie Mel. He's right. You don't know anything. They have also launched impact.
He still hasn't given us any. He hasn't given us any evidence that has been proven. He's what he's doing. He's reading an American article written by the same institution and the same people that has been hiding history and knowledge from all of the people in the Americas, including the Hispanics, because they need to understand that according to law books, the land belongs to the Moors and the Hispanics. And the reason why the Hispanics have rights to the land is because of their Moorish blood, which is AKA African genes, right? And I'm saying this because this is facts. I've already shown this for years, just like he said all that. But there's some things that when he's saying this, that these are people, he's arguing with a man who went to college, and his biggest argument is that in America, the Smithsonian and the people, you know, like the higher society who sit down and they review books and give it accreditation, they never gave Ivan Van Sertima accreditation for this book, but they also never said why. And they also said that they said they never wrote, like anytime else that anybody else, they told you why. They wrote why it was bad. They gave reason, facts, and evidence. They just said that it was no good, and nobody discredited, nobody argued it, nobody argued the facts, nothing. So you're reading from an institution who's a part of the institution of colonialism that put all of us in the position that we in today. Right? So that's very important.
Passionate attacks against the academic establishment for not supporting Van Sertima's and other questionable theories, right? And then they go at people like us who do real research. The recent publication of one of his essays by the Smithsonian Institution Press has conferred some academic respectability on his views, and he has been praised by St. Clair Drake and Manon Marable.
I keep stopping this. Let me tell you why. Because he's saying that he does real research, but he hasn't presented us any of his research. We're reading what Europeans have said about Van Sertima's work, but not all. But we're reading from the people that all of these people that he's reading from. Like, remember at the beginning, he said Ivan Van Sertima's mother is black, or comes from mixed descent or something like that. Her is black, but her mother's mixed, and his father's a white man. At the end of the day, there's no argument. This is like with Drake, when people say that there's no argument if his father's a black man, there's no argument if he's black. If his mom, either one. Like in the society we live in, like, you know, back in the racist time, they said if it was 1% nigga blood, it was you know what I'm saying? So the reality is, like, to try to discredit him and say that he an agent, when what did it benefit him to give a nation of people whose history had been hidden from them, and a nation of people that even in America is beneath the Hispanics? And I have no hatred. I want to make this clear. Listen, people that work with me, jobs I know, the people that rode with me this year that I chopped it up with, the Hispanics, they know I'm very open-minded. I got nothing but love for the Hispanics, right? But they are brothers. But in order, first we need to clean house in our own house, which is as the dark skin, and then we got to clean house and between us as siblings, right? Because there's certain races that sibling races to us, but the reason why you got sibling races is you got to understand what was done genetically, not in a bad way. That even in that book, they said that the lighter ones started breeding to be lighter so that they would not be associated with the dark-skinned Moors or the dark-skinned Africans, because they did not want to be treated as such. You get what I'm saying? So it's something that we all have to really, really pay attention to and understand if we want to understand history. If we really want them to catch on and be able to see this. And so when he say we do real research, it's like, I'm not going to discredit him, because I think some of his research is rooted in good information, because I agree with some of it, but I disagree with the way he's trying to tell Van Sertima's work down. Like he said yesterday, he said, well, he went to school in Europe, talking about he's Africans, and the Moors built the colleges in Europe. If you're going to get the most information there, because that's one of the last places that we was in high regard, which is the Vatican we built, our ancestors, right? The Moors, who are in the law of Americas, right? Who founded the courtrooms of America, the land, like, it's those things, right? So let's just see where he goes.
Two non-Afrocentric scholars with considerable reputations. His hypothesis has become almost an article of faith within the African American community. His guesses, his hypothesis, his theories ain't facts. They're music to the ears to many in the African American community, right? Mostly the Pan-Africans. It is taught across the country in African American and Africana study programs that use Ma'alana Taringa's Introduction to Black Studies, right? This is literally what they tell us in schools, right? And similar texts. It is taught in the large urban school districts that have adopted Afrocentric curricula, all right? The presumably Negroid Olmec heads have become staples of African American historical museums and exhibitions.
Here are 3 reasons your sales team will actually want to use Monday Sales CRM.
The presumably Negroid Olmec heads have become staples of African American historical museums and exhibitions. Again, you know, they are Negroid. So again, this article is going to try to say, well, they're not black just because these people also think that all black people came from Africa. When the people who write this also come with the out of Africa theory. So that's what they're saying. They're trying to debunk him just because of that, because they don't want him to be Negroid too, but they were, right? It's very clear. We can literally see that, all right? We can literally see that. It is therefore no wonder that students and colleges and universities across the country are mystified by the dismissive statements occasionally uttered by academic professionals when Van Sertima's ideas are discussed. African American students in particular have not been impressed by the abbreviated critiques that have been published thus far. They are also generally suspicious of the academic establishment with its record of neglect and distortion with regard to Africa, and have called for a detailed response to Van Sertima's ideas. This article is an attempt to address the issues articulated by students and concerned educators with regard to the validity of Van Sertima's hypotheses and the failure of the academic establishment to confront them in a systematic way. It is important for anthropologists and archaeologists to deal with this question because of its prevalence and because it diminishes the real accomplishments of Native American cultures. As Robert Scherer and Wendy Ashmore put it, archaeology has a responsibility to prevent pseudo-archaeologists from...
The part that's throwing me is like he's admitting that there's a lot of Olmec head statues in La Venta, and this is what I was talking about on one of my older albums when I said when I was talking about, like, you know, African stoneheads of niggas but inventors at La Venta, and it's an old rap, right? And I was saying that there's 50-foot statues of niggas but inventors in the city of La Venta, right? So he admits that the statues are Negroid, but he said this is the problem with everybody think that all black people came out of Africa. Now, the psychological part is to say, like, okay, in order to make this theory work, and the reason why they're going to call it a theory, because they don't like, I've been certain was teaching and educating, so of course the American publication is going to write this shit. If you don't really dig, if this is what I'm gonna be blunt here. When I hear this, he's not arguing and saying that there was nobody here to help them find America. He's just saying that the Africans had nothing to do with it. There was blacks here already. But he's disconnecting the dark-skinned people. And I'm saying that even the ancient Americans, it's not so much that they came from Egypt. They came from Nubia. They came from other places. But they are people that traveled here a long time ago. We forget that we're thinking about the Atlantic Ocean today. 10,000, 20,000 years ago, that shit was a lake. It was closer. Continental drift, right? But if you just go back, and sometimes some of this history go back 100,000, 200,000 years ago, the continents were closer. Because even in like the story of Troy, like he falls in it was like a river, a great river. He falls in a river in Europe and washes up in the shores of South America. It's no way that he washed up, you know what I'm saying? And after the ocean is way too vast. He would have died or drowned. So it was definitely a smaller, that's what he forgets. There was traveling going on before this time. So, but it just bugs me out that he's saying that the black people here had nothing to do with Africa. So he's saying that the blacks here, and I'm not saying that because even me, when I talk about the Moors, but at the end of the day, the Moors understand that we are descendants of ancient Africans and ancient Chinese people who are ancient Africans. but who had lived out and conquered China for thousands of years by this time. So they were already genetically had, you know what I'm saying, mixed and mingled or whatever. We never argued that there was many types of man or humanoid, or, you know what I'm saying? We know that there was many types of man.
Robbing humanity, all right, these Afrocentric people, Pan-African, robbing humanity of the real achievements of past cultures. This essay will examine Van Sertima's claims to determine whether they have any validity or foundation in the evidence that has been collected thus far by scholars in the humanities and the social and physical sciences. It is necessary to limit our discussion here to the most important claims and the most convincing types of evidence. Now remember, this article was written in 1997, so it's not that up to date. You know, we're in 2024, going into 2025. We've learned so much in just the last 10 years, right? We've learned so much, so there's still stuff missing. But again, when it comes to debunking Van Sertima and the Pan-Africans, it's a good article because it makes a lot of logical points that nobody ever talks about, that we always talk about in our channel.
Let me tell you why nobody ever talks about it. The reason why nobody ever talks about it is when you just said that this article is from 1997. In 2 years from today, it'll be 2027. That's like 30 years, right? 2007, 2017, 2027. This article, he just said we learned a lot in the last 10 years. Yeah, we learned even more in the last 5, right? But the point is, you're debunking this man's book from an article from 1997. So at this time, they were debunking them, but so much of this book and this evidence has been proven to be true. Right? I'm going to show y'all. While this playing, I'm about to go. I'm going to back up and I'm going to show you something from another podcast to show y'all the evidence real quick.
Authentic artifacts found in controlled archaeological excavations provide absolute proof of contact. However, no such artifact of African origin has ever been found in the New World. Okay? Body bag for the illusion. Shout out to Con Drop, yo. All right, again, no such artifact of African origin has ever been found in here in the Americas. All right, so you're trying to say all these so-called Africans came, you got Mansa Musa with all these ships coming, but nothing has been found, right? The archaeological discovery of non-native plants can also provide good evidence of contact. Van Sertima's crucial claim deals with the influence of the alleged Nubian Egyptian visitors of the 25th dynasty on the Olmec culture. Again, that gets thrown out the window when we know ancient Egypt was here, guys. So that gets thrown out the window, but let's see what they're going to say, right? Because at this time and in this culture, a number of definitive Mesoamerican traits presumably appear. If Van Sertima and others are correct, Mesoamerican civilization owes a great debt to Egypt. Again, we might be agreeing with that, but ancient Egypt was here. Ancient Egypt was here. So you see that whole point Van Sertima and these Pan-Africans have, that gets debunked right away. Ancient Egypt was here. If the idea of Egyptian contact with the Olmecs is invalid, then other claims by Van Sertima and his colleagues are greatly weakened. Just like what I was just saying. If he's using that it was Egyptian Nubians that came here, and we know ancient Egypt was here, then everything else he has to say can't be taken serious, guys. This is what he's saying. All that stuff becomes greatly weakened. All his hypotheses, all his theories. For example, the proposed AD 1311 expedition from Mali to Mexico, even if it were true, he says, would be less meaningful because the most significant Mesoamerican culture traits, worldview, calendars, deities, etc., can clearly be shown to have been present prior to that time. All right? That stuff is ancient here. It's in the codices, it's in the Popol Vuh, it's in our oral traditions, guys. It has an origin story to all these deities, calendars, and all that. it can clearly be shown to have been here prior to that time, and this violates a cardinal rule in the classic diffusionist argument that the diffuse traits must be present in the donor culture and absent in the recipient culture prior to the presumed contact. For the most part, our arguments will deal with this presumed earliest contact, because only contact at this stage of development might have been able to have a real impact on Mesoamerican cultures. There is still some question whether Egyptian contact with the Gulf Olmecs would have been sufficient to achieve this.
Let me show y'all something. And I'm going to show you why. He said this article's from 1997. It's 2024. There's so much more information, right? So I'm just going to show you something from one of my earlier shows that I did a month ago. Let me show you.
Documented in the journals of Columbus himself, there is clear account of Africans having already made the voyage to the Americas.
Hold on, y'all.
And it is from these African sailors and traders that Columbus and the Portuguese would learn to build deep seaworthy ships and learn how to navigate to the Americas.
And there he learned from the Portuguese, who were moving across Africa, who had set up the first fort among Europeans in Africa, that African sailors had actually crossed over the Western Ocean and had found a land mass in the south. This was not what Columbus had found. Columbus found islands, which are now known as the Caribbean islands, but he had not gone on to a continental mass. The Africans had found the actual continental mass. And the Portuguese insisted that this continental mass in the south was 370 leagues, which is about 15 to 1600 miles away. According to whether you count the league as 4 or 4.5, they were.
And all over. Did you know that documented in the journals of Columbus himself, there is clear account of Africans having already made.
That's one.
Impact.
I'm gonna find
so
out.
even if, let's say, we go with the fake story that Egyptians from another part of the world came here, even though we know ancient Egypt was here, why would it influence so much the culture and then they would leave again, right? But everything is unique to Americas. It's unique to the Americas, guys. Although some scholars still argue, like Deal and Co., that the Gulf Olmecs represent the mother culture of America, right? Hey, we're not in disagreement with that. I believe there was a couple mother cultures, definitely in Mesoamerica, and in South America, there's a whole other one. There's a lot of connections there with the Olmecs and their art resembling some of the ancient art of South America, right? The weird jaguars, all that. The mask. I mean, check out my Out of Olmec theory video, please. All right, there's 3 parts of that. Others among them, Flannery and Marcus, prefer the term sister cultures. That's what I prefer, sister cultures. That's what I was just saying. Because it is clear that parallel developments were taking place in other regions of Mesoamerica, not just there, and also in South America, guys, what I was just saying. Claims that the Mesoamerican tradition began among the...
This is a liver killer. This is a liver killer. And this is a liver killer.
Mocaya of the Soconusco region of Chiapas, who by 1650 BC were the first to reach a chiefdom level and who influenced the subsequent Gulf Olmecs. Flannery and Marcus showed that the 8th degree west of true north orientation of ceremonial buildings and the use of stucco at La Venta and elsewhere appeared first in Oaxaca between 1650 and 1520 BC. Grove in 1989 has proposed that much of the iconography of the early formative is merely the first representation in ceramics of a body of belief shared by the common ancestors of many formative societies. And that's what we go over in my Out of Olmec Theory series. We show that there was all this influence also.
So right now, I'm just going back to show y'all information. Right? Listen.
The Pecos skull resembles most closely the cranial of Negroid groups coming from Africa, where Negroes commonly have some perceptible infusion of Hamitic blood. Unquote. Professor Hooton refers to Hamitic blood. Hamitic blood is the blood of the Negroid, since the Ham Shemites were the dark seed which were forbidden to interbreed with the Canaanites.
You remember when Kanye said, I'm about to go ham? I'm about to go ham. This is what he's talking about. Ham. Aramaic. Now, I want to remind y'all, see, this is why I love the more you learn and dig. Right now on the screen, I want y'all to look at this picture. It said that, you know what I'm saying, the Hamites, when we dealing with the Bible. All of this connects. And it's translated as black, right? Now, it says in biblical Aramaic. What did we learn from the biblical scholars in the last year? We learned that Mary and Jesus spoke what language? Aramaic. I just want to point that out. Jesus and Mary, when they lived, they spoke Aramaic. It's like a form of Arabic. So when we see this picture on the screen, it's saying Ham, right? But Aramaic. These are why you connect the dots.
The word Ham translates as black in biblical Aramaic. Finds like these, in addition to the Negroid style heads, forces us to consider the parallel between ancient America and Africa. However, historians dismiss these similarities as mere coincidence. Archaeologists, on the other hand, conclude that the Olmecs who sculpted these monoliths have been shown to be absolute masters of realistic portraiture and did not arrive at the distinct Negroid features by accident. It is also noted that there could not possibly be a coincidence of stylization of a distinct people with facial features and characteristics which separate.
I remember Dr. Ben, every time Dr. Ben would talk about this stuff, he would say, you know, they got some nerve to say that the only reason why they carved those big noses and big lips in the statues because they didn't have the tools. This is what they say in the books in school, that they didn't have the tools to carve the lips to make them fine. But yet when you look on these statues, a lot of them got fingernail designs in Egypt. Look at all this small detail. BS. Completely BS. You know what I mean? So pay attention. Everything that's carved and depicted is for a reason. But I want you to know that when you research whose real name is Abubakari, bigger than the pyramids of Egypt.
Negroid. Research shows that the Olmecs did not mysteriously vanish as suggested by historians, but that the Olmecs migrated far north.
So tell me y'all don't see in some of these the Chinese representation. I started to realize, like, when you look at these places, like I see some of these look like people from the Nile, some of these look like people from Mali, some of these look like Chinese black people, right? And look at what they used. Look at the type of stones that they made the mask out of. To let you know, because at this point they already knew. By the time they were doing a lot of stuff, they knew that things were being destroyed, and they knew that they were going to lie and cover things up. So when you go to China and you see all these depictions of these dark Buddhas, as they showed earlier in Asia, and these dark masks, that's what they're trying to tell you. This clearly has a Chinese Asian influence. The American black is more a mixture of the Nile Valley people, the Chinese black man, right? And even the Persian, because we got to think about these kingdoms existed and we left, and our people stretched out all over the world, right? And we're so far from understanding who we truly are that's why we so lost. Like there's definitely more than one type of what we would call black person all over the planet, because they all had dark skin, but the phenotype and the certain things, the high cheekbones, like in Mesoamerica, where they talk about, pay attention to how the cheekbones of these statues are kind of like mine. Exactly. I gotta say kind of, because I remember I was young and I got stopped by this historian who was asking me who my family was because of how my cheekbones was, and they looked like the statues in South America.
And mixed in with the 4th century Chinese missionaries under Buddhist monk Hugh Shen, who traveled to what is now California and produced what Columbus mistakenly called Indian and the British called the Red Man. Other Olmecs migrated to Southeast America and established settlements. Research suggests that Olmecs mixed in with Negroid traders from Morocco, the Moors, thus becoming known as Washoe, and established governments and sovereign nations thousands of years prior to their arrival.
Boom. See, the issue is that when I'm studying Egypt, I kept finding the Moors. When you study Europe, you keep finding the Moors, right? But all of these places, you tend to not realize where is their homeland, where is their foundational base at in America. I want you to pay attention to what he just said.
America and established settlements. Research suggests that Olmecs mixed in with Negroid traders from Morocco, the Moors, thus becoming known as Washoe, and established governments and sovereign nations thousands of years prior to the arrival of the Europeans. These claims have thus been repudiated by historical circles who have gone beyond the call of duty to counteract the suggestion that the original Native American, in every sense of the word, were African, Negroid, Black, Egyptian America, and established settlements. Research suggests that Olmecs mixed in with Negroid traders from Morocco, the Moors, thus becoming known as Washoe, and established governments.
Also, not just from South America, but also in the region, that led to that, this culture, this creation of culture, and this the body of beliefs he's talking about. All right, and we go over these early formative, middle formative, later classic form, all that in my series by somebody who actually has a lot of knowledge, an anthropologist that they don't name here. Marcus claims that the earliest dated stone monuments appeared not in the Gulf Olmec zone, but in the Zapotec region of Oaxaca. Nevertheless, we will deal with the Gulf Olmecs because we agree with Tolstoy that by San Lorenzo times they had reached a point on the evolutionary scale that was beyond that of which San Jose, Oaxaca, or Tlaltico, central Mexico, can be placed. During the early formative, so they're saying from 1793 BC to 1011 BC, many of the definitive Mesoamerican traits were present both in the Gulf Coast Olmec and in other contemporaneous cultures. Because relatively little information is available about the Olmecs, Van Sertima is able to make iconographic claims which, if made for the Aztec, could be unequivocally disproved on the basis of texts and codices gathered after the conquest. All right. So let's see what he's going to say, right? Be ready to dodge some of the hijack, okay? I'll point it out. So continuing, he says here, the colossal Olmec heads, right? The main pieces of evidence represented or presented by Van Sertima are the monumental carved basalt Olmec heads.
As a parent, TSA PreCheck is a huge relief because of all the stuff you have to take. Strollers, snacks, the entertainment for them. You just have to take all of that with you when you're traveling.
To a lay observer, it seems at first glance that these gray, black-looking heads with their thick lips and flat noses must be images of Africans. It has to be Africans. So remember, guys, that look is not unique.
I'm gonna go back and forth at this point because so to make it fair, right? So you understand the man he's debunking, and it's very influential. He attacked him and said he's not even really black. He's, you know what I'm saying, he attacked him and said that it's theories, but I want you to understand the information this man brought and let you hear his side too. And I'm gonna go back and forth so you get a fair part of his argument.
Was a place called La Venta. We were able to date the stone head because they were rooted in a wooden platform where the Americans worshipped, and we got this dating of 948 to 680 BC. Now, several people have wondered what kind of Africans these were. Who were these outsiders? These were largely Egypto-Nubian types. At least that type was in command. Because what we do find in the evidence is that not merely the presence of this physical type, which is African, but the presence of cultural elements, which we will talk about in this program, which are clearly of Egypto-Nubian origin. And the question arises, why do we include Egypt among classical African civilizations? There is now absolutely no doubt that the ancient Egyptian civilization was overwhelmingly African.
So off gate, what did Ivan Van Sertima is he saying, right? He's saying that he basically said there were many African types, as we would call it, Nubian Egyptian stocks of or different types, but the rulers, you get me? So when he say only 10% of the bones of all the Olmecs, only 10% of the bones are Negroid, that's the royal class. That's one.
They have found the kingdom of Tarseti in the Nile Valley, where all the major elements, political and religious elements, spring out of the south of Egypt, spring out of the Nubian world, at Kustal in Nubian, where we have about a dozen black kings reigning before the first Egyptian dynasty. Even the hieroglyphs, the writing system of the Egyptians, we find they have their roots in the Sudan, so that as the Africans move up from Nubia, they go into Egypt, so that we find the African not only in the evening of Egyptian civilization, but in its very dawn. And we find them also in the noon dynasties. This is very important because it's important to understand that the Egyptian thing, the Egyptian miracle, was not only to touch Europe, not only to touch Asia, but was to stretch out to America as well.
All you gotta do is
Oh, you've never used samples like this before. This is Arcade, the ultimate sample plugin. You can play.
I feel like it's only right to give you both sides of the story.
These other projects, like in Mexico, this is the best example of the cultural rights which they practice in the ceremonial setting. That's why they usually powerful breaking started in Mexico in the ancient times. Typical supportation construction. Most of the buildings that we can see. Look at these two ones over here.
At the beginning of this museum, I was made the information about from the picture, from where they got at the face. Then when we was passing in the other house, you saw those pictures when they found the faces. This is one of the face more beautiful. You can see the lips, the nose, the eyes. This is completely negroid face, and the weight of this face is 25 tons. We're wondering how they carry in that time, from where they carry these rocks, because it's solid. This head they bring from 134 kilometers far from here. Yes.
So it hasn't been moved since.
No.
So I didn't mean to hit that. In ancient Africa, I gotta bring that back up. Hold on, y'all. In ancient times, the only people who had the technology, hold on, making sure it might have just ended my joint, y'all. I'm sorry. Here we go. Let me go back. I'm sorry, y'all. It exited out. In ancient times, the only people who really had the technology, because we know from going back to thousands of years ago, this is the same process that they showed you where they got the stone from in the limestone quarries, and they would move stuff from 100 kilometers away and bring it down the river and then put it here. Remember, there's still the ocean on a basis, so they can carry it down. Remember, their boats could carry, they were saying that the African boats were 70 tons. He said that this head was like 20 tons. So they could have, once they got it on a boat, they could just ride it down and move it off. Because if they were bringing 100 elephants on a boat, they definitely could bring a stone head, because it's only 20 tons if the boat weighs 70 tons, right? Or just they understood it. The only people in the world that can do that. So hear what he's saying. This other guy that I'm playing, I'm go back and forth because I'm just showing you who he's talking about. He's talking about this man is, I've asserted him is clearly a black man. And even this guy from where they're at in La Venta is telling you this is a Negroid face. It's one of the Negroid faces, right? So let me go back to this other guy who's trying to say that the Olmecs were not black.
He thinks why people had, flat noses and all that, which scientifically can make sense, So that could happen all over the world based on what he's going to say. But I just want to point that out because he's going to try to say, well, they weren't black because of this. All right. Because I kind of read a little bit of the article ahead, but I didn't read it all. All right. So this is the biggest evidence.
I mean, disclaimer, he didn't say they wasn't black. He was saying that basically because I want to say to people just checking in that they were taking credit, that they're trying to make it seem like that the Africans came over here and created the Americas in ancient times where there was already black people here and Hispanics here and other multiple color races here already that they met. And I'm telling him like there is an ancient America, and I'm not gonna argue with you on all those points, but he's saying the black people that was here, they want Africans.
That Pan-Africans have, Ivan Van Sertima, it's just literally the looks of these stone heads, the looks, they're just going off the looks. That's the only evidence. They have no real proof, primary sources, ship navigational documents, nothing like that. Nothing in the Olmecs literature that said they came from Africa.
Well, first of all, if you go to the Vatican and you do enough research, you'll realize that's where all that's at. The boats, the documents, they're not going to leave that out. You know what I'm saying? So there's miles and hundreds of thousands of miles on the Vatican of all of the stuff they're asking about. Where's the proof? But there's proof. Because the stone heads, there's certain things on the heads, and I think they're going to show you. So remember what he said. That's why I played this real quick. He said they have no proof. Right?
Have to bring the quarry stone.
They say from 100 kilometers far. Yeah. They call basalt. It is one solid piece from 25 tons.
What is the relationship between this head and the African presence in the New World?
Well, they showing to you the exactly origin, Negroid, basic origin for these peoples.
Why do you think they would carve a Negroid head? What would be the significance of that?
To show when these people was arrived to this continent. They tried to demonstrate when they arrived to America, and that was before Christ. About 1200 years BC was a time when they made these faces.
Were these heads looked at as gods, as priests?
Priest.
They were priests.
Priest.
So then the African present here was one of priesthood or what?
Priest.
It was one of priesthood.
Yes.
Are there any other heads? This size for the other races of people?
You can see the lips, the nose, the eyes. This is completely Negroid face, and the weight of this face is 25 tons. We're wondering how they carry in that time, from where they carry these rocks, because it's solid. This head they bring from 134 kilometers far from here. Yes.
So it hasn't been moved since.
No.
Was that stone quarried where they found it? Or how far did they have to bring the quarry stone?
They say from 100 kilometers far. Yeah. They call basalt. Basalt. It is one solid piece. From 25 tons.
What is the relationship between this head and the African presence in the New World?
Well, they showing it to you the exactly origin, Negroid, basic origin for these peoples.
Why do you think they would carve a Negroid head? What would be the significance of that?
To show when these people was arrived to this continent. They tried to demonstrate when they arrived to America, and that was before Christ. About 1200 years BC was a time when they made these faces.
Were these heads looked at as gods, as priests?
Priest.
They were priests.
Priest.
So then the African present here was one of priesthood or what?
Priest.
It was one of priesthood.
Yes.
Are there any other?
Now he was saying that. So to be clear, he was saying that it was proven. It proves that the Negroid type or the black people or the African or the Moor was here 2,500 years before Christ. Because that was the exact thing. Because that's what I was going back for, but it threw me off because he got so.
When they arrived to America, and that was before Christ. About 1200 years BC was a time when they made these faces.
Were these heads looked at as Dr. Van Sertima, can you make a comment on this? I was asking him the significance of this in terms of the importance in the society of these heads, and he was saying that these were represented priest class.
Yes, this is the priest king class, because it would appear that these people were among the ruling elite of the Olmec.
And these heads were revered. In fact, on one of them, you have a flat top and you have an altar where people worship. And there is another one in which you have a sort of eustachian tube that runs from the ear through the mouth so that the priest could stand at the back of the head and talk to the people. It was a kind of oracular thing, you know, a sort of oracle. This is one of the great heads. And one of the things that you should note too, which many people do not note, is the way that thing falls along the ear. And also note the markings, the way it is cut, the way it is eroded on top, because the top of the helmet is also very important to note. The things right on the brow, the way these are formed, because this is the way in which even on top, I don't know how we can get on top there, but there's something quite interesting on the very top of the head. There are certain striations on the top of the head that are also significant. Pay close attention to everything that is said tonight, and that you should prepare yourself to ask questions about the many troubling problems that beset prehistoric America. It is not really prehistoric, it is merely pre-Spanish, but anything that is pre-European is considered to be prehistoric. It is the really critical missing pages of history, both for America and for Africa. And what I want to do tonight, apart from touching on what we have seen within the last day or two at Mitla and at Monte Alban, what I would like to do is to go on to make a summary of what we have achieved, what we have seen, what we have witnessed in the last week in Mexico. We began in von Wuthenau's studio. Make no mistake, there is no studio in the world where you will find such a collection of African physical types in ancient America. Many of you have not had the opportunity to examine closely at leisure all the pieces in that collection. It is a priceless collection, and many of you have raised the question which must be pursued: what will happen when von Wuthenau, who is now 84, dies? What will happen to a collection which is of tremendous significance for us, blacks throughout the third world? Because the likelihood is, as has happened in previous centuries, the likelihood is that all of these marvelous pieces which we have seen, and which we have not yet had time to photograph completely and to preserve, may disappear. Von Wuthenau has, in addition to these little sculptures, he has a catalog of everything he has. Brilliant photographs taken by several professionals over the years.
He is apparently the director of the dancing group. And this is a man, and his features are Totonac. They're not Negroid, but they paint them with chapapote, so it is a warrior who is black. That is also an atavismo, because they knew that the Olmecs were black.
You're saying that the Olmec people themselves were black?
No, but this one certainly was black. You see, you can't see. And here is the proof for it. It's one of the best proofs I have. This is a figure made that is between the Olmecan period and the Totonacan period, transition period. And this is an Olmec sculpture, and to be black, they covered it with tar. You see, it's a stone head, but it's covered with this tar. So not only the features and the thick lips come out primitive, but it is made black. This piece was put on the cover of Revista in Mexico in March and shows you that another colossal Olmec head was found in Mexico, which has not been, in my opinion, I don't know where it is. It's never exhibited. I wonder if they really have excavated it. Of course, you see these, there is the item that the people in Tabasco, Tabasco is one of the provinces here. I mean, one of the states, the state, just as Louisiana is a state. And the people in Tabasco don't want it to disappear from their place to Mexico City. And there are frictions between the Instituto de Antropología and the state, you see. And that's why I don't know if they've done in the state something about it. In any case, it has not been shown up here in Mexico City. But it is 100% Negroid features, and I wish we could get it out and get some of you.
The choice of archaeological sites to link all that we have seen together as a single piece. This is one of the most difficult things to do in Mexico. There's a vast amount of confusion, even among the guides who are supposed to have mastered the material in their own area. There's a vast amount of confusion about dates, about the occupation of sites, about the nature of influences, about what the various things we have seen mean. Some of these things cannot yet be explained. Some of these things people can only guess at. But what we are certain of, what we are absolutely certain of, is that the Olmec civilization, which is the mother of all American civilizations, is not a single-stranded civilization. It does not belong to one race. It does not belong to what we conceive of as the Native American who came across the Bering Straits. There obviously were other influences, and among those influences was the African, specifically the Egypto-Nubian of the Mediterranean. When we look in von Wuthenau's studio, we see quite a number of heads, most of them pre-classic. By pre-classic is meant periods between, say, about 1000 BC, going right down to about 600 BC. This is a significant phase in Olmec civilization. There are several phases of the Olmec. I must deal with phases now, and those of you who are taking notes, please note, because you can get very confused when you see the Olmec appearing in other places in later centuries and becoming mixed up with other peoples. This is some of the things that lead to confusion. We must understand that in the capitals of the Olmec world, in the Olmec morning or the morning of that Olmec world, you have people coming into the site, occupying these sites as early as 1200 BC at La Venta, the holy capital, as early as 1500 BC at San Lorenzo. Those dates have nothing to do with the actual sculptures, the actual monuments, etc. People walk into a site and start to occupy it because they find there is land there, they can plow the fields, they can grow crops, they can eat, etc. They don't just walk in today and tomorrow they start building colossal sculptures and massive ceremonial platforms and pyramids, etc. So when people come into a site, has nothing to do with when the flowering, the high point, the climax of the civilization occurs. The Olmecs came into their sites pretty early as 1500 BC at San Lorenzo, as early as 1200 BC at La Venta. You must look carefully at this map and see the diamond points. Those are the capitals. And those diamond points show you where the Olmecs first made their major settlements. Now it is as early as 1858 that Mexicans became aware of these sites. Remember that just like in Egypt, a great civilization flourished and then died. And then people forgot all about it. The pyramids lay under the sand, the Sphinx lay under the sand. Some things stood there like enigmatic witnesses of a glorious past. But many people continued to live for centuries without recovering the majesty of that civilization, without being able to go back to their roots. This is what happened in many of the great cities of the Americas. that for a long time, for centuries, a shadow fell upon this world. Something very unusual seemed to happen somewhere around 8900. Some people put it slightly later, but something very unusual happened in America. It may have been some kind of cataclysm. It may have been an epidemic. It may have been the upheaval, some revolution in which the elite was overthrown and many of the marvelous statues and many of the marvelous platforms were abandoned. We do not know exactly what happened. It was suggested by Victor Damas at Palenque that there was an epidemic of cholera and that could account for the disappearance of people. And that may be a plausible explanation for the disappearance of some of the people from the Mayan sites. But when we come to the Olmec morning, which I want to dwell upon because it affects everything, when Michael Coe and others speak of the Olmec as the mother of American civilization, they are really stating the whole thing in a sentence. It really is. Because in the Olmec morning, on that great platform at La Venta, we find quite a number of things that is to affect the civilization centuries afterwards. But let me come back to 1858. 1858 was the discovery at Tres Zapotes of a stone head. Now this is the stone head. This is the first head to be discovered. Now look closely at this head. When the Mexicans saw this head, when their scholars saw this head, scholars like Orozco Ibarra, Jose Melgar, etc., they were absolutely convinced that there were Africans in America at some ancient time. Why were they convinced? They were convinced by two things. By the African physiognomy, the dome of the forehead, the cut of the nose, the jaw, the mouth, etc., but also by something which has never been mentioned in the archaeology for some odd reason. And that is at the back of the stone head, there was hair, detailed Ethiopian type hair. No Native American has hair like that. And if that was presented in the archaeology, all this nonsense about babies and jaguars, I have never seen a jaguar with hair like that. And I've never seen a baby with a face like that. People had to find explanations for things they found embarrassing. It is similar to the discovery of the great civilization of Ta-Seti, the kingdom rather of Ta-Seti in the Nile Valley, which precedes the Egyptian. The man who found the Ta-Seti, Keith Seal, never said a word about it. He died without saying anything. And it was left to Bruce Williams, who many of us will hear in Atlanta in September. It was left to Bruce Williams, his student, to take it out to the back rooms of the University of Chicago Oriental Institute and present it to the world. They said the reason why they delayed so long is because it took 15 years to put the pieces together. Without all those pieces, the stoneware vessels, etc., the pottery that was found, the stone incense burner at the site of Ta-Seti at Kustal, the site of Kustal, did not need putting together. It was intact from the very beginning. What needed to be put together were their heads. And that was not put together until the head who had a right to put it together died. Thank God. It is absolutely important for us to take a very serious view of this, because we find again and again and again that you have a deliberate effort.
I'm just showing you both sides of the story, right? He never said that everybody was African. He said that there were, in the ruling class, very important to listen, because at this time the world had been mixture. To see the point of history he's talking about, the world had been, there had already been multiple civilization and mixtures of people and all this stuff. So there was multiple people, but the ruling classes that had, you know what I'm saying, the great kings, the pharaohs, you know what I'm saying, the priests, is what he's saying. But I want to show you some other information that got to do with neither one of them. Just show you some information that presents to show you a third party.
In school, we learn much about Christopher Columbus being the first outsider to reach America. But recently, a 5,000 years old map of America has now been discovered in Egypt, revealing terrifying secrets about how America came to be. This ancient map hints at the fact that someone else might have discovered America first, long before Columbus.
These maps were largely based on much older source maps. We're talking about maps that were drawn roughly between the 1300s and the 1700s.
But how exactly did people back then know about America with such accuracy? And what terrifying secrets about America lay hidden within this age-long and mysterious map? Join us as we unravel the mystery of a 5,000-year map of America discovered in Egypt, and how it's revealed shocking and terrifying secrets about the most powerful nation on planet Earth. Exploring Nagaland's vibrant culture and linguistic mosaic. The tale of the Naga and Nubia culture is in a corner of history. The Naga culture is a civilization that flourished in the lands of Egypt long before the pharaohs ruled the sands around 300 to 400 before Christ. Nagaland is a vibrant land where festivals bloom in every corner. Each tribe treasures its unique festivals, celebrating with a splendid array of colors and a delightful feast of music. What's truly fascinating is the diverse linguistic landscape of Nagaland. With as many languages as there are tribes, each tribe has its usage, exclusive to its community. In tribes like the Angami, every village has its slight variation of the dialect, which becomes more different with geographical distance. This linguistic diversity poses challenges for both inter-tribe and intra-tribe communication.
They're all around us. In the air, on our skin. You'll even find them here in the food.
To bridge this gap, English has become the official language, while Nagamese, a blend of Assamese, serves as a common tongue. Participation in these celebrations is compulsory, as they embody the cultural essence of the people. Most of these festivals are centered around agriculture, the backbone of Naga society. With over 85% of the population directly reliant on agriculture, the Naga landscape is dotted with villages perched atop high hills or located on slopes overlooking lush valleys teeming with babbling streams. Despite being known for agriculture, Nagaland boasts skilled artisans, especially women, who craft exquisite jewelry, textiles, and wooden carvings. Dance and music are integral parts of Naga culture, with tribal performances leaving visitors spellbound. In this peaceful setting, Nagas embrace the gifts of nature with great fervor, leaving onlookers in awe. While some festivals intertwine religious and spiritual elements with secular customs, the overarching theme remains the offering of prayers to a supreme being, known by various names in different Naga dialects. During these festivals, village shamans perform rituals and sacrifices to appease the spirits for a bountiful harvest, either before planting or as the crops near fruition. These festivals are deeply rooted in tradition, tracing back to eras preceding the arrival of Christianity, embodying the enduring spirit of the Naga people. Nagaland is also a melting pot of religions, with Christianity being predominant with 75% of the population being Baptist, giving Nagaland the title of the most Baptist state in the world, followed by Catholicism, Hinduism, Islam, and others. Marriage customs vary from tribe to tribe, with some tribes resorting to unique rituals, like observing a fowl's posture to determine the fate of a couple. The warm hospitality of the Nagas is legendary, and their enthusiasm for life and celebration is infectious. While they have a warrior past, practices like headhunting are now a thing of the past. Instead, they celebrate their ancestors' bravery through folklore and traditional attire, which often symbolizes their lineage and social status. Food in Nagaland is an adventure in itself. with a preference for steamed dishes and a love for spices, including the infamous but jolokia chili. Local cuisines feature meat, fish, and fermented products, creating a unique culinary experience. Nagaland may be small in size, but its cultural richness knows no bounds. The Nubia culture had an awesome story in Egypt going back for ages. It's super old, with its way of doing things, talking, and making art. Nubia used to be a big shot ruling over lots of land along the Nile River and was tight with Egypt. Around 2500 before Christ, Nubia, known as Kush back then, was a big deal south of Egypt, reaching into what's now Sudan. Egypt called it Taseti, or Land of the Bow, because its folks were top-notch archers. Egyptians were obsessed with Nubian culture, always trading for gold, ivory, and other cool stuff. They even buddied up with Nubian leaders, swapping gifts and making deals. This friendship lasted until about 1000 before Christ, when Egypt got greedy and started taking over Nubia. By 730 before Christ, Egypt had Nubia under its thumb for almost 600 years until Alexander the Great shook things up. After that, Nubia was back in the driver's seat, although still hanging out under Egypt's shadow until around 2300 before Christ. When Nubia was doing its own thing, they made up their language, art, religion, and traditions, totally different from Egypt or anyone else. They even built rad stuff like temples and pyramids that still blow minds today in Sudan. But then, in 350 Anno Domini, the Aksumite Empire religion.
This is just like the heads. This is just like the heads. See the cat that's like. Look at the eyes and stuff. See what they're not telling you that Olmec heads with this. Well, they're not telling you that there's more than just Olmec heads. A lot of the ones they saying that there's a whole body that go with the statues.
And traditions, totally different from Egypt or anyone else. They even built rad stuff like temples and pyramids that still blow minds today in Sudan. But then, in 350 Anno Domini, the Aksumite Empire from Ethiopia swooped in and brought Christianity, kind of ruining the party for Nubia. From there, Nubia took a back seat as Ethiopia's Christian ways took over. Fast forward to today, and while things have changed a lot, you can still see bits of Nubian awesomeness in Egypt. There's traditional music, clothes, words, religious stuff, food, buildings, art, dance, and parties that all have a bit of Nubia in them. People are now all about saving what's left of ancient Nubia by digging up cool stuff at places like Abu Simbel. The mysterious Nubia egg. The mysterious Nubia egg, a relic that defies explanation, was discovered in 1907 by a British famous archaeologist, Cecil Mallaby Firth. This extraordinary egg now rests in the Nubia Museum, located in the heart of South Egypt. Dating back a staggering 7,000 years, this marvel of craftsmanship has endured the sands of time. The Nubia egg, originally an ostrich shell adorned with intricate designs, holds within its patterns the seeds of controversy. Adorned with abstract symbols, it features 3 enigmatic triangles, each adorned with horizontal lines. A sinuous snake winds its way around the egg, while a mysterious globule adorns its surface. What makes this egg truly fascinating is the interpretation of its symbols.
What happens to your skin when you soak in baking soda? Do you know what happens when you drink a teaspoon of...
Some scholars propose that the triangles symbolize the iconic pyramids of Egypt, specifically the triumvirate of structures on the Giza Plateau, the pyramids of Menor, Kheper, and the Great Pyramid of Khufu. This theory sparks intrigue, for if the egg predates the construction of the pyramids by over 2,000 years, how could it depict structures that had yet to rise from the desert sands? Some thinkers suggest that the triangles in the artwork might be simple drawings of mountains. However, when we look closely at the way the lines are arranged and how symmetrical they are, it's evident that the artist wasn't just trying to copy natural mountains. Natural mountains don't have such precise lines. Also, we need to consider how scientists date the pyramids. Carbon-14 dating isn't the best method for dating stone structures, and it's not even very reliable for dating hieroglyphics. For a long time, people have criticized the usual ways of figuring out how old the Giza pyramids are. Some even say there's evidence of fakery going on. One big fuss is about Colonel Howard Weiss. He said he found painted marks inside a special part of the Great Pyramid. These marks had the name of Khufu, the guy people think built the pyramid. So they used this to say how old the pyramid is. But some folks think Weiss might have made up these marks to become famous and make sure he's remembered in history. This makes people question if he was honest or not. But others say the pyramids are about 8,000 years old. They also say the way the pyramids line up with certain star stuff shows they're even older. Ancient researchers looked for proof that people in olden times had the tools and skills to construct big structures. They also study other signs, like how rocks wear down over time. Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist and professor at Boston University, studied the Sphinx, the statue guarding the Giza pyramids, for many years. His interest in the Sphinx's age grew when he noticed strange erosion marks that didn't match what wind and sand could cause. In Egypt, wind and sand usually wear down rocks, but these marks suggest something else. They hinted that the Sphinx faced long periods of heavy rain long ago, which made deep marks on its limestone base. Records show Egypt hasn't had such rainy weather for thousands of years, so it's likely the Sphinx was built before the Sahara Desert took over the area. The marks found on the Sphinx's enclosure were caused by water flowing down vertically in a wavy pattern. Geologists, besides those who identified the water shock, agree that these marks show erosion from rainfall. This erosion likely happened between 5,000 and 10,000 BC when the Sahara Desert was wetter, with rivers and lakes. This suggests the Sphinx and Giza pyramids might be older than we thought, possibly built before ancient Egypt's dynastic period. Some ancient writings hint at even older construction dates for the pyramids. Al-Masudi, an Egyptian historian, believed that Pharaoh Khufu didn't build the Great Pyramid. Instead, he attributed it to a king named Suid, who Al-Masudi linked to the biblical figure Enoch. Al-Masudi described Suid as a wise ruler who foresaw a great flood and ordered the pyramid's construction to store knowledge and preserve civilization. In ancient times, before Islam spread across North Africa, people worshipped stars and other things in space. They included these celestial objects in their religious and burial customs. This suggests that the way we estimate the age of the pyramids might not be very accurate. Some people wonder why the pyramids are shown twice on the Nubia egg. What if this representation was a way to show the pyramids and the Nile River in different seasons, like in the dry season and the wet season? This idea is supported by the fact that the Nile shapes on the egg are not the same width. This could mean the river's volume changes depending on the season or time of year. So, while the Nubia egg shows pyramids and a river, its inspiration might have been to show how the seasons change. There's another interesting detail near the top of the egg. Fans of the lost city of Atlantis would find this intriguing. The egg has several circles around a small opening at the top. Some scholars think this is similar to Plato's description of Atlantis from around 300 before Christ. Plato talked about Atlantis having rings of land and water, like layers on a cake. If this is what the Nubia egg is showing, maybe it's not just about Egypt, but also Atlantis. If there's a connection between the places shown on the egg and real geography, then Atlantis might not be so far from Egypt after all. Maybe this ancient egg can help to find the lost city of Atlantis. The intriguing paintings of Hanis. In ancient times in Hanis, there was a remarkable discovery of paintings that depicted maps of both the Old World and the American continent. To fully appreciate the significance of these paintings, It's important to understand the historical context. Hanis was once a bustling city during the pre-dynastic era of Egypt. It served as the religious and political capital of Upper Egypt and has since unearthed numerous artifacts. However, none have been as captivating as the map-bearing paintings found at the site. Upon closer inspection, it became clear to trained observers that these paintings were more than mere decorations. They are intricately detailed continent outlines with remarkable accuracy. A glance at these paintings reveals the unmistakable shape of the American continent. This begs the question, how did the artists possess knowledge of the American continent? It's conceivable that they belonged to a civilization that either knew of its existence or had some form of contact with the native peoples of America. The existence of such detailed maps hints at the possibility of transoceanic voyages long before conventional historical narratives suggest. Could it be that the Egyptians sent explorers across the Atlantic millennia before the likes of Christopher Columbus? Did they engage in substantial interactions with civilizations in America? These are intriguing questions that challenge our understanding of ancient civilizations and their capabilities. Aside from the map of America, the paintings also depicted accurate maps of Europe, Asia, and Africa. They showcased notable features such as the Nile River, the Mediterranean Sea, and the mountain ranges of Europe and Asia. The precision of these maps suggests that the mapmakers were either seasoned explorers or had access to a wealth of geographical knowledge accumulated over time through international trade or explorations. Moreover, the artistic style and techniques employed in these paintings astonished researchers. The use of natural pigments and precise line work spoke to the skill and craftsmanship of the artists. Their ability to challenge preconceived notions about the first non-native peoples to set foot on American soil is perhaps their greatest achievement. In light of these discoveries, it's fascinating to consider the implications for our understanding of ancient civilizations and their interactions. What other mysteries lie buried beneath the sands of time, waiting to be unearthed by curious archaeologists? The story of Hanis and its remarkable paintings is just one chapter in the ongoing saga of humanity's quest to unravel the secrets of the past. Moving further, some more recent archaeological findings offer a glimpse into the rich landscape of human history. Fascinating discovery of Atlantis. In the ancient writings of Plato, in the dialogues Timaeus and Critias, there is a tale of a legendary city called Atlantis. For centuries, people have searched for this lost city, but no definitive answer has been found. However, recent progress suggests we may be getting closer to solving this mystery. Reports indicate that a previously unknown map from ancient Rome has been discovered, which could identify the location of Atlantis. Understanding the story of Atlantis and where it might be found sparks a unique curiosity. Researchers studying this old Roman map have made fascinating discoveries that are changing how experts search for the lost city. So, where did this map come from? It was drawn up by an admiral of the Ottoman Empire named Piri Reis in 1513. This map, famously known as the Piri Reis map, is renowned for its accurate depictions of coastlines. What has intrigued specialists, however, is a particular notation on the map indicating where Atlantis might be located. According to the Latin text on the Piri Reis map, Atlantis could be found beyond the Pillars of Hercules. These pillars are located in the ancient Straits of Gibraltar, forming a gateway to the Mediterranean Sea. Beyond them lies the possibility of finding Atlantis, as suggested by researchers. To lend credibility to this theory, academics have analyzed various ancient sources, including Plato's dialogues, and compared them with information found on the Piri Reis map. The discovery of this
Panama City Beach, where you can be you.
Old map was surprising because it depicted detailed information about the Mediterranean region, including certain islands unknown to the Western world. While it's tempting to rely solely on the guidance of the Piri Reis map to prove Atlantis's existence, one must consider all pieces of evidence. This includes geological surveys, archaeological findings, and underwater structures. These findings reveal interesting shapes and anomalies on the seabed, indicating the potential existence of advanced settlements in the region. Of course, extraordinary claims like the existence of Atlantis are met with skepticism. Some argue that there isn't enough empirical data to support the reality of Atlantis. However, others contend that there is insufficient evidence to dismiss such claims entirely. For years, scientists have been trying to unravel the mysteries of this geological marvel. Recent findings in Mauritania's Western Sahara Desert have revealed striking similarities between the Eye of Sahara and Plato's description of Atlantis. These discoveries continue to fuel the quest to uncover the truth about this legendary city. The link between Sahara and Atlantis. The fascinating link between the Eye of Sahara and the legendary Atlantis is unveiled through the examination of an ancient Roman map. This map, crafted by the renowned geographer Pomponius Mela, provides an intricate depiction of the visible universe as understood over 2,000 years ago. Mela's map contains a noteworthy remark about Atlantis or the Atlantean people, indicating that the Romans were aware of a significant civilization in that region. Modern researchers have conducted an analysis revealing striking similarities between the Eye of Sahara and Plato's narrative of Atlantis. These parallels cannot be merely coincidental. The geological features of the Eye of Sahara align closely with Plato's descriptions of Atlantis. Plato described Atlantis as surrounded by a large rectangular plain, just like the expansive terrain of the Eye of Sahara. Moreover, Plato mentioned that Atlantis was encircled by water, a detail that corresponds with observable signs of liquid abrasion found at the Eye of Sahara. The presence of hot springs in the area further supports the hypothesis that the Eye of Sahara may harbor remnants of a lost city, as described by Plato. The discovery of elephant ivory within the Western Sahara Desert strengthens the potential connection between the Eye of Sahara and Atlantis. Plato's mention of elephants in his description of Atlantis lends credibility to this finding. The presence of elephant ivory in the region reinforces the proposition that the Eye of Sahara could be the location of the fabled lost city of Atlantis. Several scholars have embraced this theory, drawing from newfound evidence to support their claims. The revelation that the Eye of Sahara may be Atlantis has sparked widespread curiosity among researchers and adventurers alike. Expeditions equipped with advanced technologies and archaeological methodologies are being organized to explore this geological formation in search of remnants of the lost city. Confirming the Eye of Sahara as Atlantis could revolutionize our understanding of early civilizations and reshape existing notions of ancient societies. However, skepticism persists among critics who argue that there is insufficient solid proof to conclusively link the Eye of Sahara to Atlantis. While ample evidence exists, further scientific inquiry is necessary to establish a definitive correlation between the two. It is essential to subject these declarations to rigorous analysis and critical scrutiny to validate them. The discovery of Atlantis has the potential to challenge our current knowledge about early societies and their achievements. Exploring this ancient civilization may unveil technological advancements and societal innovations that could surprise us. Plato's description suggests that the Atlanteans possessed sophisticated irrigation systems and mastery of metallurgy, enabling them to thrive and excel in various fields. The architectural marvels attributed to the Atlanteans, along with their engineering prowess, hint at a highly advanced and organized society. Their ability to construct massive structures and develop intricate canal systems for commercial activities speaks to their ingenuity and foresight. Unraveling the mysteries of Atlantis may provide insights into the
I'm done spending an obscene amount of money on takeout every week. Done.
I'm getting back on track with Factor. Fresh, never frozen meals prepared by chefs. This saves us so much time when we're chasing around our toddler. I can get all the nutrition I need without having to obsess over it. I never run out of tasty, nutritious dinners thanks to Factor.
Factor has over 40 different dinner options.
Like Protein Plus and Calorie Smart.
I never thought eating clean could be this easy and taste this good.
I can't believe it has taken me this long to get started.
Can you guess what I'm thinking right now?
I love my little girl.
Hello, can anyone hear me? We were attacked. My husband was infected.
What's wrong with Daddy? Daddy's scaring me.
Don't you lay your hand on her.
Only in theaters January 17th.
Origins of mythical accounts and legends that have captivated people for centuries. The influence of the story of Atlantis can be seen in various works of literature and film worldwide, underscoring its enduring appeal and fascination. Exploration efforts aimed at uncovering the potential affiliation between the Eye of Sahara and Atlantis are expected to continue in the coming years. Advanced technological tools, such as archaeological methods and remote sensing, will play a crucial role in uncovering secrets buried beneath centuries-old sands. The implications of discovery. Atlantis. The discovery of Atlantis is not merely about satisfying our curiosity. It carries profound implications for our understanding of ancient civilizations. If the Eye of Sahara were definitively identified as Atlantis, it would challenge and reshape our current perceptions of early societies and their achievements. Exploring the possibilities of ancient civilizations could make us rethink what we know now. Looking into the mystery of Atlantis could reveal its secrets, from its advanced technology to its fascinating culture and architecture. Digging into Atlantis's past might teach us valuable lessons about how societies rise and fall, and what factors play a role in their success or downfall. While some people doubt the existence of Atlantis, others speculate that the Eye of Sahara might be linked to it. More research is needed to confirm or debunk these theories. Collaboration among experts from various fields, along with rigorous scientific inquiry, is crucial for uncovering the truth. Discovering a lost civilization like Atlantis relies on dedicated explorers and skilled researchers equipped with cutting-edge technologies such as advanced imaging and underwater exploration tools. If Atlantis is indeed found, it could revolutionize our understanding of ancient civilizations and their technological advancements. It might even challenge what we thought we knew about history and point us toward new avenues of research. The allure of Atlantis has captured the imagination of people for centuries. It represents both a lost paradise and a cautionary tale about human arrogance. Finding Atlantis would be a monumental achievement, not just for archaeology, but for our innate curiosity about the unknown. However, the search for Atlantis is ongoing and requires careful examination of evidence to separate fact from fiction. While there have been intriguing findings, including possible references to ancient maps, we must approach the subject with both excitement and skepticism. Further investigation and scientific scrutiny are essential to validate any claims about Atlantis, especially regarding its alleged connection to the Eye of Sahara. Unraveling the truth behind Atlantis. The fascination with Atlantis isn't just a coincidence. It's like the beginning of our current world and way of life started back then. But where did this idea of a mysterious sunken land come from? Well, one of the earliest mentions of Atlantis comes from Plato, an old Greek thinker. He talked about it in his writings about 400 years ago. Plato described Atlantis as a big island that used to be in the Atlantic Ocean. He got this story from a guy named Solon, who heard about it during a trip to Egypt around 2,600 years ago. Plato was really into this Atlantis thing. He even talked to smart people from that time to learn more. They knew a lot about old stories, history, and rocks. Plato finally wrote about Atlantis later in his life.
Listen to this. There's no excuses anymore.
Making sure to save the story for future generations. He got some info from ancient libraries too, like the one in Alexandria. Plato thought Atlantis was pretty big, almost like Western Europe, and full of cool stuff like metals and a special metal called orichalcum. The main city was fancy, with rings of land and canals around it. It was like a big fancy fortress city. But did Atlantis exist? We're not sure. People have different ideas. Some think it was a big island that sank into the ocean a long time ago. Others say it was just a story. To find out more, we have to look at rocks and the ocean. There's a theory that Atlantis was a big island connected to Europe, Africa, and North America. It was around a long time ago, maybe millions of years. But then, it split into two islands, and eventually they sank because of earthquakes and rising sea levels. Some of the highest parts of Atlantis might be the Azores and Madeira Islands we see today. For a long time, people forgot about Atlantis. But during the Renaissance, when people got interested in old stuff again, they started talking about it more. In the last 500 years, lots of theories have come up about Atlantis, but none of them match Plato's story exactly. Some folks think Atlantis was made by beings from outer space. Others say it was a place where people were super spiritual and tech-savvy. One guy even wrote a book saying Atlantis was made by special people from another dimension. There's also this idea that there were different kinds of people back then, like giants or spiritual beings. Some stories say they even had a third eye. But over time, people changed, and that special eye disappeared. A famous psychic, Edgar Casey, said Atlantis had a tough time in its last few thousand years. There were big disasters, and some people left for other places like Egypt and Peru. Atlantis finally sank for good around 12,000 years ago, according to him. But even today, we're still not sure if Atlantis was real or just a really good story. Buried in the old sands of Egypt, a surprising find was recently uncovered by scientists, sending shockwaves across the world. This incredible discovery was none other than a 5,000 years old map of America that contains lots of terrifying secrets about the greatest country in the world. Motivated by curiosity and a desire for knowledge, a brave team of explorers set off on a journey across the vast Atlantic Ocean, guided by the mysterious map. Their adventure took them to the center of the New World, where old ruins were hidden under thick trees. However, as they ventured into the unfamiliar territory, they encountered strange signs and unexplained events. It became clear that the map held more than just information about the land. It held the key to a power beyond understanding, one that had been locked away for thousands of years. As they dig deeper, they uncover the chilling truth. The map was a warning, a sign of the horrors that once existed in America. And now, with its secrets revealed, they had to decide whether to protect the knowledge or release the ancient terrors that lurked within. What secrets lie beneath the ancient map of America? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. The Galactic Federation and Atlantean Civilization. Looking into another story, one about the Galactic Federation and space creatures fighting for control of Earth.